let's start with something that Mike and Randy couldn't even hit because of when it came down. Something very important to me. Justin Fields officially traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Before we get into that move, the value of it, I just wanted to take a brief second to talk about the last couple of years and what the Justin Fields experience was like, because obviously there was so much talk on the Bears internet over the last 3-4 months about what they would do, whether they should keep Justin Fields. I think I'm on the record as saying that this is a unique opportunity. It's the way they've talked about it every single time that Ryan Poles has been in front of a microphone. They have the number 1 pick. They're in a spot where I think it would be irresponsible to not use that pick on a quarterback. And that always felt like the most likely path to me. That doesn't mean that Justin Fields didn't give Bears fans in the city of Chicago more excitement at that position than I think I've probably experienced in my lifetime. I mean, obviously the Jay Cutler trade was incredible, but that era always left you a little bit cold, always wanting more. Having a guy that was a homegrown pick have those moments of excitement. Ironically, that Monday night game against the Steelers comes to mind. Some of the things he did as a runner in that second season. That doesn't mean this is not the right move for the Bears, because excitement doesn't mean sustainability at the most important position in sports. And their ability to kind of pivot to this, to draft Caleb Williams and get everything they've gotten in trades over the last couple of years, this was always the most likely outcome. So when you saw the initial news of the trade, what was your first reaction?
I was surprised they got it done, actually, because I knew the market just was not good for him. And I was talking to so many different GMs around the league, just trying to get an idea, A, if they were in on it, but also if they knew of other GMs that were in on it and what they were hearing from just, there's so many conversations that are happening during this week that I don't even think fans can comprehend. And it's not always specific to what that team's need is. Everyone is just sharing information and collecting and trying to see of how they can get, I guess, really ahead by using that intel. But that being said, so many different types of people I was talking to around the league just kept telling me the same thing, so much so that I felt like I kept going back to my text messages to see if I was making a mistake. Meaning, wait, didn't I just ask this yesterday? I did, but I have to ask it again because I just believe that his market would get better somehow, because I do have a lot of that Chicago fan base in my ear, I think, and also on Twitter, that made me believe, well, maybe his market should be better. And I'm being lied to by all these guys. Maybe that's what it is. Everyone's lying to me. His market's actually great. And that just wasn't the case. So, look, I understand in the city of Chicago, this was a really difficult few months, I think, just for the fan base, because of those things that you speak of those blips, those moments where you saw him on the field and you thought, this is it. This is the guy. They got the right guy. But I knew from my conversations with sources in that Chicago building that they've moved on, and there wasn't a similar conflict mentally or emotionally. It was a lot clearer in the building by the decision makers than it was by the fan base. So I think when I saw it, I actually felt relief.
That's exactly how I felt. That was the number one emotion.
Correct. It was like, thank goodness, especially because I went on our colleagues' podcast on their local Chicago one, and I just was talking to them about the situation, and they asked me a very simple question, which was, do you think that Justin Fields is going to stay on this roster, or are they going to trade him? And I was completely confused by I almost told them to stop recording because I said, you don't mean to ask that, right?
Here in Chicago, it's like still this Caleb versus Justin dynamic. But is that your feeling too? Looking, when you talk to people about Caleb Williams?
Just to be clear, you're telling me there's people in Chicago who are weighing Caleb Williams and Justin Fields as, hey, maybe we should roll with Justin and not draft Caleb Williams?
Yes. A lot of them. Like every day, this is what we deal with here in Chicago.
Wait, is it you guys?
No.
Okay,
no,
I was going to say, I really like you guys, and you're really good at what you do. And then I was about to hop off the pod. No, I'm just kidding. To me, it was just from an outside perspective, from covering this team at a national level, it was just very clear that they were moving on from Justin Fields, and also obviously having conversations is my job to collect it and know it. So, the relief I felt for fans as soon as I saw it, unfortunately, came at such a horrible time when so many Bears fans were out partying for St. Patrick's Day. But hopefully on Saturday night, the parties were even better, taken to another level, knowing that, look, it's going to be tough to break up and move on. But here's what I know. Just like in any relationship, the best way to get over the person that you just broke up with is get a new one and get a better one. So maybe for this Bears fan base, the hope that Caleb Williams is the answer. Hopefully they're sleeping better.
I think a lot of Bears fans look at what happened over the last couple of years and see a franchise that failed Justin Fields in a bunch of ways. And I think multiple things can be true at the same time. They did. They did not put enough around him in those first couple of years to give him a chance to succeed. And this is the cost of misalignment as an organization. They trade for Justin Fields in the final year of the Ryan Pace era. Those two guys get fired. Ryan Poles comes in with Justin Fields in his second year with a roster that is in absolute need of a teardown. It was one of the worst rosters in the entire NFL. His biggest incentive and his obligation was not to make sure Justin Fields succeeded. It was to set up the Bears for the best possible future they could step into over the next couple of years. And even if you look back at the free agent class of 2022 and some of the players they potentially could have signed to put around him, they weren't missing out on much at receiver, at left tackle. You know, Teron Armstead has been hurt consistently for the last couple of years. Christian Kirk got $18 million a year. There weren't a lot of options to make sure you could put the right pieces around Justin Fields. And I think the way that Ryan Poles handled this and the timeline he handled this on, making sure I want to position this team as good as possible for 2024, 2025, and beyond. That's exactly what he did. The Bears would not be in a position to have DJ Moore, Caleb Williams, one of the best situations you're going to drop a top 10 quarterback into in a very long time, if he had leveraged himself to build the right team around Justin Fields in the moment. That was never his charge coming in after another regime drafted him. So it's possible that they did not do enough to help him succeed, and this can still be the right move. Both of those things can be true at the same time, and I think people have struggled to come to terms with that.
And you mentioned Ryan Poles a lot here because he's obviously the general manager and he's making significant decisions. But let's not forget that Kevin Warren has a very loud, strong voice in the decision-making at all things Chicago Bears, not just stadium conversations, not just what was happening in free agency, but obviously this movement that they made in terms of trading him eventually to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I just think that you have new voices, people that are learning each other. They took the year to evaluate and figure out what was best for them. And in their mind, it was obviously to move on from Justin Fields. And I can't wait to really dig into some of the other side of this because, you know, I do want to talk about just the overall thought about Justin Fields over the last few weeks. I think the fact that the rest of the league just knew that Chicago was wanting to move on from him completely.
So that's my question here. The market that did not materialize, do you think that's more rooted in the way the league sees him as a backup? Because I think that obviously has played a role here, but also teams knew that the Bears were in a terrible position. They had zero leverage in this. So the final price of a 6th round pick, conditional one, going to Pittsburgh, is that more about the way the league views Justin Fields or how everyone saw Chicago in this negotiation?
Robert, the second Ryan Poles picks up the phone to call teams about Justin Fields, they immediately lose their leverage. Everybody in Indy knew that they were trying to move this guy. Everyone. So because of that, you're going to have to know that you're not going to probably get what you were hoping for. There's a price that comes with that when everyone has that information and that knowledge, and they hear how you're handling it right now. At the time, it sounded very kind, actually, of Ryan Poles saying, you know, we want to do what's right for Justin, right? We want to do the right thing that could help him. So other GMs around the league heard that and they said, oh, all right, well, they want to get this kid out of the building now. They want to move so he doesn't have to be around all of this. And so they can start doing their work on Caleb Williams and have all these meetings and all this hype towards the draft. And he doesn't have to be a Bear anymore. And all of that was used against the Bears in the end here, which is why we saw what very little value really they got for Justin Fields. Now, second part of that, is that the reality of how Justin Fields is seen? I don't believe so. Now, do I think that all the quarterbacks that we saw get traded during this last week or so are better at the quarterback position? No, I don't believe Sam Howell is better than Justin Fields. I think that's a difficult pitch, but at this moment, the Bears business side took a hit because everyone knew their cards.
I also think that the fact that no team was willing to stake him as their starter, that's undeniably going to affect the market. The moment that the Raiders were deciding that, okay, we'd rather pay Gardner Minshew. The moment that the Vikings said we'd rather pay Sam Darnold, that as those seats got filled, it's inevitably going to drive the price down. And then you consider what the fact that Sam Howell has 2 years left on his rookie deal, the fact that Kenny Pickett does in a backup market. Those are 2 cheap years where Justin Fields only has 1. So I think it's all a combination here. And Courtney Cronin from ESPN reported that there was a better offer on the table for Justin Fields to a team with an established starter. The Bears preferred to send him to Pittsburgh. Again, Ryan Poles said he wanted to do right by him. I'm not going to sit. I said this yesterday. I'm not going to sit here and lose sleep over a 6th round pick compared to a 4th round pick if that's what they could have gotten. Getting him out of the building, not making him kind of flail in the wind here for a few more months, I completely understand it. So from Pittsburgh's perspective, what do you think this means for them after signing Russ to that minimum deal with the situation that he has going in Denver right now?
Well, before we get to Russ, I actually want to stick with what you were talking about, how Courtney was reporting about other teams having interest and better offers on the table. I wasn't able to get that information. And that this, by the way, Courtney has the information. Somebody told her that. I just think there's a lot of spin going on right now. That's just my opinion.
Sure.
I think right now everyone's just trying to make the Bears look like they handled this in the classiest manner. I think Justin Fields, who I think has completely handled the situation in the highest way he can. Even just his goodbye to fans, I thought was tremendous. So look, I don't think Bears fans should be frustrated that there was a business decision made because of their feelings for Justin or feeling like they needed to do the right thing for the player. Essentially, to kind of what you're saying, I don't think it was anything significant at all. What I do have an issue with, though, and this is something that's been discussed with other teams as everyone's been watching this, and this came up last week, was just the timing of all this, right? Why not go to Justin and say, look, we're drafting Caleb Williams and you're going to be the backup, and you essentially have him in the building here, and you wait for another quarterback to perhaps go down during training camp. We see it every single year. We saw all of last year how many times a quarterback was needed. Think about the kind of value Chicago could have received then. What was the urgency?
What do you think that value really is, though? Because that's my question here. If we look at how much do you think a team really would have traded for a Justin Fields in the middle of the year when so many of these teams are willing to? Josh Dobbs went for nothing when he got traded. Joe Flacco was signed off the street. A lot of these teams weren't willing to leverage actual draft or use actual draft capital to seek out a position when their guys got hurt. So I wonder what it actually would have been. Like, let's say they keep on the roster till training camp or during the season. Like, what is the best pick you get back if a starter goes down?
But think about the quarterbacks you just named, right? Josh Dobbs, Joe Flacco. Of course, we're not going to give up a lot for them. Joe Flacco is my age. Josh Dobbs, up and down. We've seen little spurts. I think Justin Fields would be considered, a significant upgrade from the traditional backup quarterback that would be available if this situation that we're talking about, this fake scenario of a starter going down in August, or something like where we saw the Jets last year with Aaron Rodgers, would they have been willing to make a move like that? And I don't know what the price would be, what a team would be willing to go, but I just got to believe, based on how I knew the league saw Justin Fields. Did I ever have this thought that he was a first round pick? No. But there was a time, and this is the truth. There was a time, the conversations around the league where he was going to go for a 2nd or 3rd rounder, right? So at some point here, before everyone sensed that Chicago was desperate to move him, his value was higher because of the player. So I think when you throw that situation in with the team that would be desperate for a quarterback, I believe the Bears could have gotten more. But
I think that's probably fair. My question is it would have been worth, because I wouldn't have wanted to make him wait that long. I can understand trying to do right by him and saying, we're not going to make you sit through training camp. We're going to let you start over again, have a clean slate, have an offseason somewhere else. I get that part of it. Not waiting till the draft, I think, is the question that I would raise. Is there a team that doesn't come away from the first couple rounds with a quarterback that's in need of one? But really, the only team that came to mind for me that hasn't done anything at quarterback and potentially could have needed one was the Broncos. So if the Broncos didn't find one in the first 2 rounds, would they have been willing to give up a little bit more for Justin Fields to allow him to compete for the starting job? What do you think about that?
I don't believe that Justin Fields' style of play fits in what Sean Payton is trying to do. Go back to everything Sean has done over the years and what he prefers. Now, do I think if Justin Fields is on the roster and he has to make it work like we saw him do in New Orleans, all those different quarterbacks when Drew Brees went down? Yes, he would figure out a game plan to fit into the strengths of Justin. But I think for him, now that he's completely fully in the driver's seat there in Denver, now that Russell Wilson has moved out, he wants a high processing type of quarterback there that resembles what he has done and had success with in New Orleans. And I don't believe that would be Justin Fields. So where does that leave Denver right now, right? Jarrett Stidham is on the roster. We know how they feel about him right now. They think he's good. I don't believe that they think he's great. I don't think they think he's the future.
He's workable if they need him to be.
Correct. It's a solid quarterback to have right now at this point. But here we are now, okay? Sam Howell's traded to the Seahawks.
Kenny Pickett to the Eagles.
Sam Darnold, from what I can gather, was one of their top targets who they were going to go after once they moved on from Russell Wilson. He goes to Minnesota on a 1-year, $10 million deal. Denver's not paying Sam Darnold $10 million to go play there. No way. That would have been a bigger surprise to me than anything else, probably, if they did do that. But just knowing how they see things, I don't believe that would have happened. All right, so who's available, right? So then Joe Flacco winds up with Indy. Joe's obviously been in Denver before. I thought actually there was a moment where that would have made sense, but obviously they did not make that move. So every single time I saw a backup quarterback go last week, all I kept thinking was, what are they doing in Denver? What is their plan here? You have Zach Wilson still sitting on the roster in New York. Okay, so is that something he'd be willing to do? But then in my mind, if you're going to get Zach Wilson, why wouldn't you get Justin Fields? Justin Fields is better than Zach Wilson. Okay, then you have Ryan Tannehill, who's still available.
That's an interesting one. That one makes the most sense. But
to me as well.
My understanding, what I had heard about this is that Ryan Tannehill's made a lot of money playing football. I don't know if he's necessarily going to be thrilled about taking a backup quarterback salary to go to Denver or play somewhere on the cheap. But at this point, it might be the only thing he's left with if he wants a role in 2024. That was my sense of the situation. I don't know what you had heard about it.
Or he pulls a Jay Cutler to Miami thing where he just waits and waits and gets a big fat deal and gets to step in and be the starter again. Obviously we saw he lost his job in Tennessee to Will Levis, and he was pretty bummed out about it. And I never had any inclination from the times I've spent around Ryan that he was trying to hang it up or he was done playing football. Not at all. Like, he still wants to play. So I am very interested to see if Denver's going to make that move this week, if they're going to be willing to get in and maybe trade for one, which again, I think the Zach Wilson has some upside. I do think it would be very comical, obviously, because of the backstory there. Here's Sean trying to take another former Denver quarterback here to try to improve him. Denver, excuse me, Nathaniel Hackett, the connection I'm trying to make there, and try to make that work. But I think he would have his work cut out for him, in my opinion, if Zach were to go there. But we'll see who they wind up on, because, is there a player in the draft that they're looking at right now that they believe in, that they'll be willing to give up picks for? So I think Denver's obviously certainly a place that we're going to be watching.
Putting a bow on this, everything about that response and the fact that Denver would not be interested in him, that leads me to the conclusion I'm reaching here about Justin Fields. Like, there aren't that many seats out there. There aren't that many teams that, even if when the draft ended, would potentially be willing to give up more for him than you were going to get now. So if there's not a team post-draft where he's only sitting there for another month, do you have the stomach to have him sit there on the roster in the locker room with Caleb Williams all the way through training camp and waiting for something to happen? I can understand not wanting to live that life if you're Ryan Poles, and not wanting Justin Fields to live that life. That relief that we felt when that move happened, I guarantee you they felt a similar sense of relief. So but not having to deal with that
themselves, though, Robert, they did it. The reason why we feel for the fans so much is because we've been watching how they've been operating. If if Ryan Poles came out at the combine during his media availability and said, we haven't made a decision at the quarterback position. We're standing pat. We still believe in Justin. Justin is a top-notch quarterback, blah, blah, blah. Whatever PR thing or narrative they need to push out there. So teams go, maybe they do like him. Okay, maybe he is better than we thought. But the fact that they just had their trash out on their front lawn going, hey, come take it, it made it very difficult. So either way, like you said, I'm relieved for Justin. I'm relieved for the fans, relieved for this front office from that side of it. But I am always going to wonder, could they have maybe been a little bit more patient and played poker a little bit better here to get a better deal?
Ultimately, he goes for a conditional sixth. It will go to a fourth if he plays more than 50% of the snaps. The barrier to that is that the Steelers have let everyone in America know over the last 24 hours, apparently, that Russell Wilson is still the starter in Pittsburgh. What do you make of this very strong messaging that seems to be coming out of Pittsburgh, that even after trading for Justin Fields, Russell Wilson is going to be their guy in 2024?
I can get very snotty during this time of year because I'm stressed and I'm tired. And I received information from a source that essentially said the same thing. And it felt very volunteered. It felt very, put this out, which that's a whole nother conversation to have, of weeding through why people want you to put information like that out, right? So here's what I think. I by the way, I did not put it out. And I think everyone got the point. No one needed me to tweet it.
There's a lot happening here. I saw a little nugget, I think it was earlier today, about how they're going to work toward an extension by the time the season ends. It's like, why? You have him for nothing this year. I just don't understand it.
Do you remember what Philadelphia did with Carson Wentz, Robert? Do you remember all the tire pumping? Do you remember all the narratives that were around him to make him feel good? You're our guy. We love, like, everything to feed into the ego and the confidence, the mental side of this, the psychology. It is March. Talk to me in October. I just think this is what they need to do, what they have to do. This is obviously a conversation they must have had with Russell before he signed. So they're just sticking with the word, and they're just going to live in this space through camp so they don't have to answer questions about a quarterback competition. They got out early, and let's just see how it goes. Now, I believe Russell is a better player than Justin Fields right now. I do. And Russell will most likely be the starter week one. I believe that to be true. Do I think that Russell Wilson will last the whole season? I don't. I can predict. I almost feel like I should make a bet. We will see Justin Fields play for the Pittsburgh Steelers as a starter. It will happen. Come on, the edge this kid must have, the chip on his shoulder. I bet you he has the best offseason in terms of just the work he puts into it. And then, you have the other factor in this. Okay. So you've got Arthur Smith, the offensive coordinator. And gosh, don't you just think it's so interesting, right? You have Arthur Smith, who, we got to know him more when he was with the Tennessee Titans, right? You have Marcus Mariota there, you have Ryan Tannehill, and then he goes to Atlanta, and we see him attempt to make that work. Doesn't have the most success, but we saw snippets of it. But I never got the sense, covering Arthur Smith, that a Russell Wilson type was the kind of quarterback he would be into, or a Justin Fields.
I don't think either of these guys are the type of quarterback that he would be into.
So you're going from that to now these guys are going to a coordinator that I'm not even sure is the best marriage. So all of this to me is just, it's so bizarre. And here's what also makes it crazy is the last time I spoke to you, and we discussed the Pittsburgh situation at quarterback, I said to you, they're not interested in Russell Wilson and they're not interested in Justin Fields. I said it because I knew it, because I was told it by Pittsburgh. They obviously changed their vision and their plan.
This is a value play. They got both of them for free. That's exactly what this was. They got both of them for free, and they said, we're going to take the guys for free. And I understand building it this way, right? Russell Wilson is not one of the 5 worst starters in the league. Like, if you look at what he was in Denver, even if there was a lot to be desired, you can have workable NFL offense with Russell Wilson. You're paying him the league minimum. I get that. And Justin Fields is a free dice roll. You give up a conditional 6th-round pick. You get to drop him into your offense. I think that you have a better chance of fielding a league average passing offense with Russell Wilson. I want to see Justin Fields, though. I want to see Justin Fields in that Arthur Smith rushing offense with that offensive line and the way that group played last year. I just think the dynamic element that potentially gives you is more entertaining to me. But neither of those is a great plan. Again, these are marriages of convenience and value. That's what it feels like the Steelers have done here.
You don't win games because you got a good deal on 2 quarterbacks. Right?
But that's exactly what they've done. That's why I still think that Kirk Cousins was the best move for them, because I think that's the only needle moving thing they could have done at quarterback this offseason. But that's not what they do. That's not how they operate. This is how they operate.